friends, let's end type 2 diabetes with the Mitochondrial Solution. And then by the time you see persistently high blood sugars, you know your mitochondria are damaged, which causes insulin resistance and then some. The end result of bad mitochondria is persistent high blood sugars, high blood pressure, poor skin, leaky gut, brain fog, clogged arteries, poor immunity, and cancer. And these are all symptoms of diabetes and high blood pressure. And when you damage your mitochondria, then you can't eat a lot of these foods that I eat on a regular basis. Take a look at this fruit. This is called a star apple. I've actually never eaten this before. This is from the sapote family of fruits. And so inside, it has a gel-like quality, right? Right here is what you're supposed to eat. And the outside, you're not supposed to eat it because it's full of latex. Latex is a natural rubber in plants. And when you eat latex, sometimes it can irritate your esophagus and your gut. So you're supposed to just take a spoonful of the creamy stuff inside. It looks super delicious, super yummy. And let me see what it tastes like. Kind of like Jell-O, except a little bit firmer. It has a hint of a tropical fruit taste. So traditionally, if you were to eat this plate of fruit, I'm sure people will tell you to pair it with proteins and fats because these are carbohydrate-rich foods, and carbohydrates makes your blood sugar rise. Well, that's only half of the story, and that's why that dietary advice is misleading. The more fat and proteins you eat actually can make your insulin resistance worse. So by following that dietary advice, you simply delay your sugar spikes so that you are unaware of the damage that is happening to your skin, gut, brain, arteries, and immunity. If eating proteins and fats with carbohydrates was good for you, then eating Korean barbecue with white rice would be healthy, but it isn't. In fact, it will make your diabetes worse. So in this video, let's dive into what causes mitochondria damage, but more importantly, the mitochondrial solutions. Basically, 3 things that you can do today, including carefully choosing what to eat and not to eat, which can begin to revitalize your mitochondria so that you can prevent and beat type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure and all the bad consequences that come along with those diseases. Now remember, even though I'm a double board certified medical doctor, I'm not your medical doctor. If you have any questions, please have a conversation with your own personal medical doctors to customize and personalize your health journey to maximize your success to mitochondrial health. And this is especially true if you're on any medications. The ends do not justify the means when it comes to your health. So picking the right pathway to truly revitalize your mitochondria will make a huge difference in your health. The journey will set you free from diabetes, high blood pressure, and their health consequences. Now, of all these foods, this is the only food that's fermented on this table. And I'm not breaking my rule to avoid salted fermented foods because there's no salt in this fermentation process. And I'm going to let you think about what this is, and I'll come back to it a little later. And it all make more sense when you have a bit of a background story. Now, I'm sure you have noticed that a lot of people with diabetes and high blood pressure are older in life. And why is that? People just assume that they get diseases of aging, but that's not true. Remember Jack Lalanne? Does this guy who pulled 70 boats filled with people swimming 2 hours and 25 minutes look like he has diabetes or high blood pressure? No. What is he, superhuman? No. He died just like all of us will, but he died at 96. He had been sick for 1 week with pneumonia and he refused to see the doctor. If I had a choice, I would rather go like him, quick, and not spend decades of suffering stuck in bed, tied to 2 feet and Foley catheters. That's a difference between his lifestyle and the average American's lifestyle. Jack Lalanne had excellent mitochondria. He was literally the godfather of fitness. He moved a lot and he ate micronutrient-rich foods. Our epidemic of diabetes and hypertension kind of paralleled the invention of TV. Now, TV doesn't just poison our minds, but it has poisoned our bodies because it made us eat more processed food as we watch TV, and it also made us sedentary. Diabetes and high blood pressure are diseases of sedentary people. And that's why we're having an astronomical rate of children getting diabetes and high blood pressure. In the past, children would go outside and play to pass time. Today, children are passing time sitting in front of a screen, all alone. The longest walk they have to do is to go to the refrigerator or to the bathroom. And the best thing that you can do for your kids is to turn off that screen time and make them go physically play. That is the quickest way to improve their their mitochondrial health. And if you gave a child a choice, they would naturally play all day long. That is really their job, to learn how to play. However, now we're really not playing anymore. What they're doing is the same thing adults do to kill mitochondria. Sit. We were all once children, spending countless hours walking to and from school and playing. How many people sit at a desk for countless hours? And after that exhausting day at work, you get in the car and you sit on the freeway in traffic. And then you get home and you're sitting eating dinner and then sitting relaxing in front of another screen. Whether it's watching YouTube, sitting in the car, sitting at the dinner table, or sitting on your sofa. The more you sit, the worse your mitochondrial health will be. Aging is not a disease. It's what we're doing or not doing with that time as we age that causes disease. Sitting simply increases all-cause mortality. So that's why, number one, stand up and just march in place. The only time I'm sitting is when I'm forced to sit in a moving vehicle, eating with my family, or basically recording my videos. Even on Sundays at church, I am standing in the back of the room. And people are so sweet. They're always trying to offer to find me a seat, not realizing that I try very hard not to sit. And many of my homeschooling friends knew that I was always the parent in the back, stretching or marching in place. Movement protects mitochondria, and the results are almost instantaneous. Just move 2 minutes after a meal, and you can significantly lower your blood sugars for the entire duration of digesting that meal. Take a look at how my friend dropped her blood pressure by 40 points. Now, she started checking her blood pressure multiple times a day after a scare to the emergency room. And when she notices that her blood pressure goes up, she walks up and down the stairs for 20 minutes. And sure enough, she can drop it by 40 points, and that effect lasts for hours. But once she stops moving, she notices that her blood pressure starts creeping up. And she thought she was abnormal and that she was the only person who had to move to keep her blood pressure down. But then she realized that was illogical logic. She was abnormal because she was not moving. People are designed to normally move. Look how much your grandparents moved. Remember how much you moved when you were a kid? We've turned a normal activity that people have been doing for thousands of years into some exclusive activity that we have to pay a gym membership fee to do. And now it's abnormal that my brother swims an hour every day in the morning before he goes to work, walks during his lunchtime, and walks with his family after dinner. He has a full-time job, and he's been living this lifestyle for decades. And he's just doing what millions of kids do every day. They walk to school, they play during recess, they play during lunch, they walk home from school, and then they go practice a sport after they do their homework. And yet they still sit just as long as we do in their classrooms. And what's abnormal is the amount of sitting their parents do daily. The parents spend hours sitting at work, then driving to pick up their kids, to drop them off to practice, to then sit on the bleachers or a beach chair to watch their kids move. And then that's exhausting. So they go home and they sit on the couch. Once I walked 20,000 steps in a day. I was honestly so proud of myself. I told my brother, and then he checked his app, and he had walked 23,000 steps in that day, on top of swimming that morning and playing ping pong with his colleagues at work. However, you don't have to walk as much as my brother or swim as much as my brother to improve your mitochondrial health. In fact, if you go from a sedentary lifestyle to just any movement, you will significantly improve your mitochondrial health. And if you can do that throughout the day, whether your movement is gardening, cleaning the house, shopping, or just walking around your block, or walking in the mall, your movements will be additive and boost your mitochondrial health. Now, we should all aim for 10,000 steps every day. Someone made a comment on one of my videos. They think that 10,000 steps is made up. Well, somebody did make it up. In 1965, the Japanese government wanted people to walk 5 miles a day. So they started a marketing campaign of 10,000 steps. And it turns out they were right. The Japanese are still one of the longest living people in this modern day and age. So if you want to increase your lifespan and your health span, you got to start moving. That's how you can heal your mitochondria. Because when you move, you not only make new mitochondria, but you make the ones that you have more efficient at energy production. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cells, producing ATP called adenosine triphosphate to processes like oxidative phosphorylation. However, it comes at a cost. As a byproduct of producing ATP, it makes a lot of harmful free radicals called reactive oxygen species, or ROS. These are harmful gases that actually damage your mitochondria over time. Luckily, we are all built with self-cleaning antioxidants. The mitochondria can protect itself if it has enough antioxidants. And this is why I eat vitamin C rich foods. Vitamin C is a strong antioxidant. Exercise also boosts the body's natural antioxidant production, helping to neutralize oxidative damage to the mitochondria. And when you contract your muscles, well, that movement stimulates the uptake of glucose from the bloodstream into cells, independent of insulin. And this is particularly beneficial for people with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. Regular movement increases the sensitivity of cells to insulin, meaning you need less insulin to manage blood sugar levels. And this effect can last for hours and even days after exercise. Exercise enhances the body's ability to break down glucose and fatty acids for energy. This reduces blood sugar spikes. Muscles also use glucose for energy during exercise. And after you use it up, you have to replace the muscle stores. These are glycogen stores, and they are replenished by pulling in more glucose from the bloodstream. My brother has been an exercise fanatic since high school when someone called him fat. We were all chubby as kids because my parents bought us processed food, not knowing that they were poisoning our mitochondria. I was a coupon clipper as a kid. They don't give you coupons for healthy food. My mom made me clip and organize coupons, and literally I would spend hours doing it. And that's why I don't like to organize paperwork.
Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And on the weekends, we would go to multiple markets to strategically use our coupons and sometimes to get them doubled. She was so proud of herself. Once she saved $2 off of some processed frozen food that would have cost $3. Now, my mom, she grew up in a period in which she went through starvation because she was a part of the war generation. And during that time, Taiwan was very poor. She was taught to diversify her food to avoid toxins and to get essential nutrients. But she didn't grow up with processed food. Your grandparents didn't grow up with processed food. Unfortunately, you and I don't have that luxury. We can't apply the rules of diversity to engineered foods because engineered foods are poisoning mitochondria at an astronomical rate because they concentrate toxins and are nutrient deficient. And that's why, number 2, it's important to avoid processed foods with ingredients that are poisoning your mitochondria. And this can be felt almost immediately. Did you know that it actually takes energy to digest your meal? This is why it's important to select what you swallow if you want to feel good after you eat. Have you ever felt tired, sleepy, brain fog after eating? That's not supposed to happen. There are symptoms of mitochondria poisoning, which means you ran out of energy to process your food. That is very stressful. Digesting food is very stressful. Millions of people suffer from reflux, bloating, and constipation after eating. If you've ever raised a child, you know as soon as a child eats, they poop. Think about all the diapers that you had to change after eating. Think about the time you spent burping that child before they learned how to fart and burp. And when your child was colicky, what did you do to make them more comfortable? You adjusted their food. Children grow up to be adults. And when adults suffer the same symptoms, how do they fix it? With drugs. They don't change your food. How does that make sense? Eating activates the reflex to poop. And when you perpetually eat the wrong foods, your body loses that responsiveness and you feel colicky and constipated. The answer to the problem is not piling on drugs which can poison your mitochondria, but to remove the toxins that's causing the problems. There are so many environmental toxins in our food that make you make more reactive oxygen species, stressing your mitochondria. The more toxins you eat, the more poisons your mitochondria becomes. So what age does is gives you more time to collect those toxins, such as pesticides and herbicides like glyphosate found in Roundup, organophosphates, and rotenone. Heavy metals like mercury collect in large fish like tuna and swordfish. Lead can collect in water. Cadmium accumulates in chocolate, and arsenic collects in rice. All these chemicals destroy mitochondrial enzymes and depletes your built-in antioxidant system, the glutathione redox system, to further harm your mitochondria. And it doesn't help that processed foods can be heavily contaminated with mold, like aspergillus found in oat grains or nuts that are stored improperly, or okra toxin found in cereals and coffees. Collectively, they all damage our mitochondria health and lead to metabolic diseases like high blood pressure and diabetes. The thing is, I can go on and on for hours talking about toxins that nobody disagrees about. They don't belong in our food supply, but nobody's purposely eating those toxins. However, there are mitochondrial toxins that people go out of their way to eat. It's like the Trojan horse hiding in plain sight, and people are ignoring it. And let me show you where you can find it. Grab a hold of the fat roll on your belly. That's made out of saturated fat. That is on the outside of your body and really isn't a problem. But imagine if that fat roll that you're holding in between your fingers infiltrated your muscles, your liver, and your pancreas. This is the quickest way to make a person diabetic. Ectopic fat. Ectopic fat is fat migrating to places that it shouldn't be, like a cancer. And what do you think it would do to those organs? Yep. Damage them. And the end result is high blood sugars and high blood pressure and all the cascade of diseases that follow those diseases. So how can you prevent that from happening? It's actually really simple in concept. Don't overwhelm your body with saturated fat. There are 3 ways in which the body gets overwhelmed with saturated fat. The first is if you drink alcohol. There is no acceptable amount of alcohol for your liver or brain. So if you're worried about not getting dementia or fatty liver, the first thing you should do is to stop drinking. So let's talk about metabolically what happens to alcohol to become ectopic fat. Now, if we just look at alcohol by itself, it actually has less calories than if you ate fat. So alcohol by itself is not necessarily the problem because it serves as a source of calories. But the problem with alcohol is that after you absorb it, your liver enzymes convert that alcohol into a toxin called acetaldehyde, which not only damages the liver, but also your brain and your heart. Acetaldehyde then needs to be transformed into acetate, which is either used up or becomes stored as saturated fat. Now, when you drink a large amount of alcohol, you will overwhelm your liver, which then stores those calories as saturated fat in your liver, ectopic fat. This is fatty liver. And eventually the toxic effects of acetaldehyde and ectopic saturated fat in the liver starts to accelerate the toxins at a faster pace. Obviously, to avoid this problem, you have to avoid alcohol. In the old days, we only saw fatty liver in those who abused alcohol. But now people who never drink are getting fatty liver because they're eating another chemical that is similar to alcohol metabolism, fructose. Alcohol and fructose both share similar sugar fermentation pathways to get ultimately trapped in the liver as ectopic saturated fat. Hence, eating table sugar, high fructose corn syrup, agave, or honey will help you accumulate that ectopic saturated fat faster. But this isn't happening when you're eating whole fruit. Think about it. Fruit has been around since the Garden of Eden, but people didn't start getting fatty liver from sugars until we started concentrating the sugars and eating pounds and pounds of it. People eat like nearly 70 pounds of table sugar. I recently released a video on how I literally ate 8 apples in a day. And to be clear, I don't eat 8 apples every day. I actually eat a variety of foods. Like this plate. This is like a part of one meal for me. And in a day, I'll eat apples, tangerines, oranges, papaya, persimmons, pomegranates. I try to eat at least 5 different fruits every day. And currently in my house, I also have frozen blueberries, frozen cherries, mangoes, pears, red grapes, strawberries, kiwis, and a pineapple. There's literally over 250,000 plants that are edible. And my personal goal is to try something new every week so that I can get closer to 250,000 one day. Now, this is also from a plant. Guess what this is? This is literally cocoa powder. So this is how I eat my chocolate. And the reason why I eat this every day is that it's a longevity food. This stuff has actually been shown to help people improve their blood flow and increase mitochondrial health. So there's no sugar in it, unlike your average chocolate bar. So I've done lots of videos about chocolate and how it's full of cadmium. And like I mentioned, cadmium is a mitochondrial toxin. Nobody should be collecting it. So I found a brand that actually has the lowest amount of cadmium as well as lead in a cocoa powder that also has a high amount of polyphenols. Because the polyphenols in chocolate is what I'm after. Those polyphenols are antioxidants. And how we know that they work is because they actually help rebuild mitochondria and they can improve blood flow. And it's amazing. For people with severe arterial disease, it can actually promote their mobility. And if you know anyone who has severe arterial disease, you know that it can be a very painful disease because it chokes off your blood flow. So every time you move, your blood flow gets choked off even more. And then they have so much leg pain that people don't want to move. So if a food can help patients with severe mitochondrial toxicity improve their symptoms, in fact, reverse some of those symptoms, that is amazing longevity food that I want to eat every day. So this is why I just eat this brand from Target. Now, I eat a lot of fruit, and my hobby is to find exotic rare fruits. So I love to go traveling to just find fruit. And in fact, I have a friend in Washington who wants me to visit her, but I told her I'll go when she can find me some fresh black raspberries. And fruit isn't just my thing. My brother eats a lot of fruit, Jack Lalanne eats fruit, and a lot of Asians eat a lot of fruit. You don't get insulin resistance from eating fresh fruit. You get insulin resistance when you concentrate this fresh fruit. That's an apple pie, an apple tart, an apple fruit leather. Those are not fruit. Asians are still some of the longest living people on earth. And if you go to any traditional Asian household, you will be served a giant fruit platter at the end of your meal. This is our dessert. Fruit is a longevity food. Fresh fruit are full of hydration, fiber, and micronutrients. Like I said, fruit pies, fruit juice, fruit gummies, fruit leathers, they aren't fruit. Those are engineered products that are concentrating fructose so that they will be easily converted into saturated fat. Another common way to increase your ectopic saturated fat is to overeat calories, which includes any fat, any protein, and any caloric carbohydrates. But if you keep your fruit fresh, it's hard to overeat them. Have you ever eaten a lot of fruit all at one time? You feel bloated and your teeth are sore, right? Naturally, there's so much vitamin C in fruit that it makes your teeth a little bit sore. And there's so much hydration and fiber that it actually makes you feel a little bit bloated when you overeat that. So this is a natural protective mechanism. But when you take the fiber out, when you destroy the vitamin C through heat, and then you take out the hydration, you've destroyed the natural protective mechanisms that were built in to mitigate how much fruit we eat in a day. So as you age, you just have more time to accumulate stressors in your body. It happens faster when you surround yourself with engineered food. Now, I'm sure you've seen people who look younger than their age or who look older than their age. And classically, we know that people who smoke look older than their stated age, several decades older. And that's simply because they're accumulating mitochondrial toxins. When you smell anything, whether it's a candle, cooking fumes, barbecue grills, or cigarettes, you are inhaling mitochondrial toxins. That's taxing your body and giving you metabolic diseases like high blood pressure. The more stress you accumulate, the more damage your mitochondria gets. And the less efficient you are able to handle the calories that you're eating in your food. Your body is essentially a biochemical machine, and the ingredients in your food affect everybody differently, depending on how well or how poorly your biochemical machine works. Remember when you were a kid and you could just eat just about anything and not gain weight? Your biochemical machine was so active because you played and moved so much. But as an adult, you're not moving at the rate that you did when you were a child. So now the same amount of food is too much energy, and that excess energy becomes stored as ectopic saturated fat. To prevent that, you have to be aware of the amount of calories you're consuming and not to overeat them. And what makes nutrition complex is that the threshold of overeating is different for every macronutrient. For example, for protein, it's recommended that people eat roughly about 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. The average American is eating twice that amount. So if you're eating more than you need, you are overeating, and that will be ectopic fat. But there are people who need more protein. For example, if you are bodybuilding, you need to eat more protein. If your protein sources are exclusively plant-based, then you'll need to eat more than from an animal-based source. If you are healing from a wound, you will need to eat more protein too. There's always going to be exceptions. Now, for carbohydrates, the calculation is even more complex. Carbohydrates give you quick energy. That quick energy allows you to be physically active. And the more physical activity you do, the more carbohydrates you can burn. But the calories that you can absorb from that carbohydrate is dependent upon how that food was processed and whether or not you are eating it in ultra-processed form or if you're eating that carbohydrate in a whole food matrix. And what gets even more complex is that each of the different processed carbohydrates have a different effect on your body. So when you're eating a highly refined carbohydrate like breads, cereals, white rice, you will absorb those calories a lot quicker, but not as quick as the carbohydrates found in your condiments, sodas, candy, and desserts. Those are made out of simple sugars, already highly processed. And the faster you absorb calories, the faster you overwhelm your body. And when you overwhelm the body, it converts all those excess calories into ectopic fat. Ultimately, it ends up you will make saturated fat faster. On the other hand, if you ate your foods whole, like for example, this red quinoa, instead of eating white rice, you will have eaten a carbohydrate that doesn't automatically all get absorbed. That's because this red color is a fiber shell. And when you eat fiber whole, meaning that you don't take this as a supplement, but you actually eat this as a whole food. You're not processing the fiber out. You can't absorb all the nutrients that are trapped inside the seed because some of those caloric nutrients are trapped to the fiber and you can't digest fiber. If you take, for example, a whole nut, you could probably only absorb about 60% of the calories from the nut. That's because of the food matrix, the original structure that gets lost when you make nut butters. And this is why a calorie isn't a calorie. And even the same food processed different ways affects your body differently. The fiber matrix is key to preventing your food from overwhelming your body with calories. And your body can't really store much excess carbohydrates. It can't store excess proteins at all. So when you eat excess macronutrients, whether they're carbohydrates, proteins, or fat, they all get turned into saturated fat. And what's worse is that saturated fat is actually a direct mitochondrial poison. Clinically, people have noticed this a century ago. Healthy people divided into two diet groups, either a high-fat group versus a high-carbohydrate group, was noticed to have different tolerance to carbohydrates. Their blood sugar levels would rise differently when they were challenged with an oral glucose tolerance test in just 2 days after changing their diet. So guess which group had the higher blood sugar? The saturated fat group or the carbohydrate group? Saturated fat group. They ended up with twice the amount of blood sugars compared to the people eating just carbohydrates. So the more fat you eat, the higher your blood sugars will get, which is actually opposite of what you're listening to online. And this can be seen within a few hours of eating. And in fact, within 3 hours of eating a high saturated fat diet, it will inhibit your body's ability to process that glucose. This is called lipotoxicity. But not all saturated fat have the same effect. Specific saturated fats like palmitate, which is found mostly in meat, dairy, and eggs, they worsen insulin resistance. Just like alcohol, palmitate by itself may not be the toxin. The problem is your body breaks palmitate down into a toxin that increases mitochondrial dysfunction, causing oxidative stress, free radicals, and inflammation. That toxin is called ceramide. Ceramide is actually a bioactive lipid and acts as a signaling molecule, but when you have excess accumulation, it can be toxic to your muscles. Ceramide alters mitochondrial membrane composition, impairing its function of complexes 1 and 3 in the electron transport chain. This leads to less ATP production and increased reactive oxygen species. This damages mitochondrial proteins, lipids, DNA, and further impairs its function. Ceramide also forms channels and pores in the mitochondrial outer membrane, facilitating the release of cytochrome C and other pro-apoptotic factors into the cytosol, triggering apoptosis. It can activate proteins that destabilizes mitochondrial membranes. Ceramide inhibits mitochondrial enzymes involved in fatty acid oxidation. For example, the carnitine palmitoyl transferase 1. This leads to lipid accumulation, which further adds to mitochondrial stress. Ceramide also disrupts calcium signaling between the endoplasmic reticulum and the mitochondria, leading to calcium overload in the mitochondria, which impairs ATP synthesis and triggers apoptosis. Hence, elevated ceramide levels when you eat more saturated fat is associated with insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver, and cardiovascular diseases. Now, I know many of you don't believe it. You think it's okay to eat animal fat. So take a look at this paper in which they infuse lipids straight into the veins of children. And when you take dietary fat out, you also lower blood sugars. Age stresses our bodies at an astronomical rate. And by the time you reach 50, you will have decreased your mitochondrial function by 20% and 30% by age 71. And most of this is because people have become sedentary. Pinch your belly fat again. That fat makes part of your body composition, which makes a difference in how fast you will burn calories. Lean muscle tissues uses up more calories than fatty tissues per gram of weight. So people with more fat mass will just simply use up less calories than people with more muscle. Biologically, men and women are also different. Your gender determines how much calories you will burn. Women in general burn fewer calories for the same body weight compared to men. And this is probably because women just tend to pack on more fat due to our hormones. And another thing to keep in mind is that the heavier you are, the more energy it takes for you to move. So if you are as heavy as Arnold Schwarzenegger, whether that's in muscle or in fat, then it will take you more energy to move your body compared to me. But as you lose weight, then it'll take you less energy to move. So you will lose less weight. Luckily for everybody, it's not just movement that can repair our mitochondria. Antioxidants built in plants can counteract all those insults. And the results will be lower body weights, lower blood sugars, lower blood pressures, and lower risks of all those chronic diseases. Antioxidants are built into fiber. This red color is built into this fiber. And these antioxidants serve to protect the plant, but they also protect your mitochondria against the stress that you can't control in your life. From the air pollution that you're inhaling to the toxins that you eat in your food. There is no way to avoid all pollutants and toxins that surround our lives. Have you seen how much plastic you're surrounded by? And the answer to this problem is not to band-aid our problem with medications or fad diets that appear to get us healthier by keeping our blood sugars lower when we check them, or by helping us rapidly lose weight. Whenever you rapidly lose weight, you're rapidly losing water and muscle. You know how long it takes to rebuild muscle? And when you lose muscle, you're losing water because 75% of your muscle mass is made out of water, whereas only 10% of fat tissue is water. So hence, when you're doing extreme diets or extreme weight loss drugs, your extreme weight loss is due to the loss of water and muscle. Hydration and muscle preservations are the two things that protect your mitochondria to slow down aging. Why does anybody want to help you lose them faster? This is why as you grow older, when you lose muscle mass, you start seeing sugar spikes. High blood sugar is a symptom of an underlying problem, not the problem by itself. So if you focus your diet on blood sugar spikes the wrong way, by avoiding all carbohydrates, even healthy ones full of fiber, hydration, and antioxidants, well, you've just assigned yourself a diet toxic to your mitochondria. But no matter where you're at, it's not too late to improve. So if you want to learn more about specific foods that can revitalize your mitochondrial health, watch the next video.